Guys, to media and entertainment in the metaverse. So if that's not your flight, this is your time to get off. That statement has particular meaning for me because I left my phone on the plane as I got off last night. Okay, you're gonna love this. WestJet, not that I'm gonna badmouth WestJet, which I am about to. The crew came off, it's the last flight, I get that, they want to have lives and go home. Wouldn't let me back on because they closed the door. I'm having a head nod there. You've been there? Yeah. Won't let me back on. Say, no, 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 no. I go to customs. They're treating me like I'm a drug dealer, which I am. No, I'm not. And then after about an hour in going through customs and doing a bunch of other things and getting my bag, they said, well, you might be able to get your phone back Monday if we find it. So good news is they found it this morning, so good on WestJet. Saved the day. I'll pick it up on my way out. But I'm without a phone, so I have paper. Has anybody ever seen this? I hear it still works. I'm Sean Branagan. I teach media entrepreneurship and innovation at the Newhouse School at Syracuse University, which is the #1 communication school in the United States. We are in all varieties of communications, public relations, advertising, news, and all the entertainment types. I'm a generalist here on this panel. So I do media innovation in the broadest sense. These are two experts, particularly into immersive and into this metaverse that we're going to talk about, but we're going to try to keep it focused on media. So what is this going to mean in entertainment? Think of media in 3 big areas: news and information. So things like Yelp, but also breaking news, news coverage, and news analysis. And then the persuasion medias, all the advertising, public relations, branded content, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third one, which is the biggest, every way you can measure it, is all the entertainment areas. Gaming, movies, TVs, entertainment like this, like events, real life, physically, we're all here kind of events, and all the other things, music, music industry, et cetera, et cetera. Any questions on what this is going to be about? I teach, right? So that's my check-in. And then when I see somebody taking out their drop slip, know that they are not ready for this class. So if you need to leave, that's what we're going to do. I will not be offended. We may shame you later, though. Okay. Let me give you who our panelists are. Good pal of mine because we're unicorns. We teach media entrepreneurship and innovation. Elizabeth Strickler, say I was giving her a shot about her school, and now I'm going to say nice things. She's Director of Media Entrepreneurship and Innovation, Georgia State University in Atlanta, their Creative Media Industries Institute. She especially works with some great students, so anybody who's hiring anybody in this space, and we were talking to Domhnaill I'm having to change how I was prepared to say his name. He told me this morning, no, that's not right. So I was misinformed, which isn't the first time. But the GSU students coming out of your program are terrific, but they're not well known. Out of my school, they're well known. Out of her school, not so much. They're terrific, honestly. So anybody who's looking for somebody to do this kind of work, go snatch some up. She's also a faculty member with the business school. It's Elizabeth Strickler. So let's give a hand to Elizabeth so we get a little warmed up here. Anything to add? Things that you do? Interesting stuff?
Well, I've been sort of, my background is in philosophy and in computer science. So right now.
So common.
And then I also was a filmmaker for a bit. So I'm having a heyday in the moment that we're in right now.
It is totally that. So. Yeah. And your students, anything to add about your students?
Well, our students, so I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia is one of the top 1 to 3 film and television production areas in the world.
Fast growing, too.
So if you see the little peach logo, that was made in Georgia. So our students are steeped in media, a lot of musicians and media makers, but they have extremely diverse backgrounds because Atlanta is a very diverse city. And so our students are extremely diverse and in a delightful way. So we say we're organically diverse.
Thanks very much. And now I'm going to try and say his name right. It's easier than I make it appear because I've trained myself wrongly, right? So I'm untraining. Domhnaill. Got it?
Yep.
Domhnaill Hernon is global leader for EY. That's Ernst & Young for the people who remember the old days. EY's Metaverse Lab. He works with business clients, researchers, technologists. I know you better add about the Bell Lab stuff because I didn't have that. Technologists and artists looking for how to harness this metaverse for positive human impact. Imagine that in business. He's also a good Irish boy. Oh, my mom was from Ireland, so I got to do a little Irish call out. And he knows and works with emerging tech startups around the world. Anything to add?
Not much. My parents gave me an impossible Irish name, which is always fun, a good, nice icebreaker. I'd say, we're building metaverses, and I purposely add the plural, and we can talk about what that means. And I'm very interested in the social impact side of the metaverse, making sure that the divides that exist in the internet today don't persist and grow in the future evolution of the internet, which we are calling the metaverse. And I'm doing a lot of work on the social impact side, working with artists, working on accessibility topics as well that I'm most keen on.
Had a terrific exhibit at South by Southwest. I bring my students to South by, and they came back. The ones that are all metaverse lovers, not all of them, but the metaverse lovers came back and said, wow, blew my mind, blew my eyes out, et cetera, et cetera. So come talk to both these intensely metaversian savvy people afterwards. We're going to hang around, and maybe we'll go outside so we don't end up having the bum rush to get us out the door. We'll get ourselves out the door. So I'm going to give a little introduction, but I am going to ask you both to do something that you don't know about ahead of time. I want you to act like you're a teenager in the back seat of the car. I'm Grandpa Swanee, because that's actually what my grandkids call me, Grandpa Swanee. I'm Grandpa Swanee talking, and you have to give a lot of eye roll, right? Anybody with teenagers in the room? Like, that's their most powerful muscle is eye roll muscle. Eye roll, and give these guys a hint of what you think of what I just said. So if you're like in absolute agreement of like, yes, Captain Obvious, thank you very much for doing that, Grandpa Swanee. Or like clueless, what on earth are you talking about? So they get a sense of where you guys are in each of the points I'm about to make. Sound like fun? You ready?
Yep.
I'm already rolling my eyes.
Get yourself in this mood. You ready? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, so it's like bring back that teenager that we all want to be in those meetings when the big boss is giving this thing and you're going, no, can't do that, can't do that. Yeah, here you can, okay? So where are we with this whole metaverse thing? I'm going to ask you both to give a definition or your definition of metaverse or metaverses. But before we get into that, I'm going to say, so the concept's been around a long time. This is where a Grandpa Swanee would say, well, back in my day, I'm going to spare you that, okay? By October of 2021, Zuckerberg probably brought the metaverse to the mainstream by rebranding Facebook and that whole world as Meta. We had a little side conversation about that later. You can ask me after the session. But as Meta and focused on metaverse, to take the Facebook, the Instagram, the WhatsApp empire that they've created and say, let's remake this, my take is, around selling our hardware. The Oculus at that point, what's the name of it now?
Quest.
Because I keep calling it Oculus, because I just want to keep poking them. This is where you guys could be doing the eye rolls. Just get it ready. Come on, bring it up a bit, okay? Because I'm watching them, and if they're laughing, that means you're doing it because they're not laughing at me. It introduced it to the mainstream. Nicely done. With this focus and rebranding, Zuckerberg wanted to rechange this stuff and go toward the headset, the VC, the VR headset, right? Anybody who's been sitting at a green table in front of Congress wants an alternative reality, please. So that's part of my snarky belief system is that he's rebranding to take away attention from what Facebook is and has done, et cetera, et cetera. But a couple other things. They launched their Horizon Worlds. How many people in the room have a VR headset? Show of hands. That's a higher percentage than I usually get, and now a lot of times with college students. That's interesting. Anyway, how many of you have been, of the ones with headsets, have been in Horizon World? 1, 2. Any Meta people here and Facebook employees? Great, we can talk freely. So Zuck wanting to recreate the business around Metaverse. Let's see, how's that worked out? Okay, employees are actually not wanting to be in their very own product and environment. They have said, no, don't make us do this for the big meetings. They've been out about it. And anybody have any stocks or they follow investments? That's everybody's hand should be up. You forget. You got 401k plans. You got all those kinds. Since the rebranding as Meta, Facebook has lost nearly $500 billion in value. Haven't heard that too much, have you? Stay tuned on the trillion word again. So last November, ChatGPT. How many people have heard of ChatGPT? All your hands better go up, right? ChatGPT took all the air out of the room. They announced and got 150 million users on a product that's not a product. Okay, so there's a couple takeaways you're going to have. You're going to, from now on, not call it AI. You're going to call it Gen AI or generative AI because that's what it is. It's not AI solve our real problems. It's go make a thing, you know? But ChatGPT, 150 million users in just a handful of months is amazing. And many have said, okay, that's actually the future, not this metaverse and stuff. I'm looking at eye rolls over here. There should be some heavy eye rolls, don't you think? You're not really good at this.
I was a very stoic teenager. I just listened, you know?
Okay, so then you have to do that even more, like slouch down and just like not. I'm clearly in disagreement with Sean. So everyone's talking about AI, and generative AI is where I want you guys to be. Meanwhile, Facebook/Meta has cut back on a lot of their development in the metaverse. They've put a lot more bets on this generative AI environment, which they should. Disney closed down metaverse development. Hey, wait a minute, isn't this about media in the metaverse? What do you mean? Disney's out? Meanwhile, Monday, I think we're going to see a big change. Apple is going to announce its mixed reality headset. We'll get you guys to weigh in on what you think of that without the eye rolls. They're announcing that on, it's Monday, right? I think it's Monday. Yeah. They would know more than me. Is this the 2007 moment? Is this the equivalent of when Steve Jobs held up the iPhone? And I have this for my students to see, the Wired article, that's front page cover of Wired saying, really, do you think Apple can be a telephone company? Do you really think this will work out? So a lot of disbelief about what was happening there. I think that we're on the other end of that, sort of Apple is the savior, possibly, of this metaversian stuff. Eye rolls needed, maybe, yes? Lesser known player. How many people have ever heard of NVIDIA? You guys both can put your hands up because you're in the gaming space, right? Gaming space. And now they're the new $1 trillion darling because people are saying in most of the popular press, it's because they are providing the chipset that is needed to drive the kinds of things that we're going to see in generative AI and then in future AI. But also, you guys should know there are huge players in this metaverse space, which is what we're here to talk about. So I'm going to give a badly read moment from an opinion piece that was in the information.com. Highly recommend that to anybody who wants to keep track of what's going on here. And then I will shut up a little bit. Come on, let's be honest. I'm not going to shut up. The technology hype cycle we have would have us believe the metaverse is in decline. It's been usurped by the generative AI. Yet this narrative is superficial. It's easy for you to buy into, and it's probably wrong. It's almost certainly wrong. The truth is, emerging technologies are part of a synergistic ecosystem. Rather than heralding the demise of the metaverse, what this author, and it's Britton Heller, she's terrific, said that what we may see is this was the catalyst. And I heard this before reading this from this woman here. When we were out talking and on our phones, we're out walking together and we talk. And she was saying, I think this generative AI is going to increase what goes on in the metaverse. It's going to increase the numbers of people who can contribute into this. And I think you're dead on right. It gave me pause. I literally stopped, and my dog looked at me like, why are we stopping? What's going on? Do you need to stop, Sean? Sorry, just being a little disgusting there. So with generative AI, we're looking at creating content for the metaverse, just like make it a whole lot easier. Think of it as maybe the YouTube moment that the phone created for YouTube. Without the phone and the camera and the video, that would not have made YouTube the success it is. Maybe this, generative AI, will be the catalyst to put metaverse into reality and into more normal people's hands. Sorry, guys. More normal people like you guys. That's my opening. How many eye rolls did we get?
A lot.
A few, yeah. Any of them you want to point out that Sean's totally missed this, or you want to add to it, or agree with me?
Well, if I'm a teenager, I just want to play like gorilla tag, and I don't even know who owns any of this stuff.
Cool. Well put, totally true. We talked about this at breakfast. Yeah.
Well, I think forgetting trying to present or project into my teenage days, because I don't want to do that. I've grown up for a reason. But I think there's I would say generally don't believe anything you read online about any of this. And you mentioned some names about, departments being closed down. A lot of that is just media incorrectness and misinformation or bad information. And I think there's a lot of confusion between what is the metaverse and what is Web3. The two are conflated and confused all the time. And we strongly believe they're two very different things that can come together.
That could do work together.
Can do work together. Can be separate and can also come together. And the way, if I can just very simply just explain, by our definition, what the metaverse is.
So, good. That's the next question. Define the metaverse as you see it.
So if you think about, you're on your phone, maybe you're looking up a web page. That's the internet today. It's 2D, it's flat, it's text-based. Images are 2D, videos 2D. You all know that. It works really well. I'm not dismissing how well it works. But that internet is not this. So this has a consequence, right? When I step up off my chair and I get closer to you, and then I'm talking to you, and then I talk to you, and then I back off, and if I choose to turn my back to you, all of that has a consequence in relation to the human condition, how we as humans have evolved to interact with each other, how we build community, how we share, all the cultural side of it. So my simple definition of the metaverse, not Web3, is that the internet evolves to become more like this, more like how we as humans interact with each other in the physical world. No more complicated than that.
So visual, audio, all those things that we have as you just described here.
And it can be VR, but too many times people equate metaverse equals VR. And if you do that, you completely miss out on all the other ways you can experience the metaverse and how you can create value in the metaverse. So
I'll do an American English translation of what he said, which is VR, because we emphasize the V.
Virtual reality.
Yeah, virtual reality.
So you can experience the metaverse on the web of today. Right? Online games like Roblox and Fortnite are a version of the metaverse, and tens of millions of users every day are already using them. So you have to be very careful what you read. When you Google search metaverse, all of the top 3 pages are going to equate metaverse equals VR, virtual reality, and they're going to say the metaverse is dead because certain companies have made certain investment decisions, and I would just kind of be very wary about how much you believe in some of those hyped up media grabbing headlines. And that's not the truth of the reality of how we are building out these solutions out for clients all over the world.
All right, so we'll come back to this on next. Let's get your definition. I'm going to give you my definition as well.
Well, I mean, you've said a lot, so I'll take like the very philosophical kind of approach and then the very practical approach. And many of us, if you saw Matthew Ball's talk yesterday.
How many of you guys saw Matthew Ball's talk?
So I really liked the way that he broke it down into real-time, synchronous, and spatial. So to your point, spatial is you moving around. Real time is that it's happening right now, that you can see what's going on. And synchronous means that, and this is where we get into the blockchain, and I won't completely say that, but means that when I take this from you, you don't have it anymore.
I don't have it.
I'm not right-clicking it and taking it, So that's sort of this synchronous kind of thing that our worlds, we all see exactly what's happening, which is I have this now and you don't. So
do you have my phone? Oh, sorry.
Look.
I know. There you go. I always speak to. Okay, so your definition.
So that's but then the philosophical one, and I think it's kind of helpful, is that it's like the merging of our subconscious altogether. And that's a really far-fetched kind of concept, which is our imaginations all merged together. But I think that's what we're seeing, all of this tussle that's going on who owns what, on intellectual property and all this. Because if our minds start to kind of, merge together and we're all thinking kind of the same thoughts, who owns what thought, who owns what, original statement, who owns the art that art's being generated on. So that's a far north kind of, perspective, but I think it helps kind of understand and put in perspective some of the stuff that we're doing.
Thank you both. I'm gonna add one, but emphasize on where these guys are. I'm a generalist, and I look at the meshing of digital and real life is what I would consider metaversian, if I can make up a word. And if I put a word on it, I'll call it high fidelity reality. I want the world I live to be smarter and more contextualized, and I want to be smarter in that world. And I think we as society have done this before. We've built things like this. They're called cities. You might have heard of them. Mm-hmm. And they all are slightly different, to your point about metaverses. Like, I go to this city for fashion, and it's not Albuquerque, right? It's, sorry, anybody from Albuquerque here? Okay. It's Paris or something else, right? And that same kind of vibe, I think, is what we as humans are likely to bring into this, whatever it is we're about to create. Okay, so now I'm going to go back again, and I'm going to say, so where do you see it in development? And I'm going to do kind of a little bit of a lightning round. Mm-hmm. Can somebody do me a favor? I don't have my phone. I usually set my phone up so I can see the time. Oh. Can't do that. No, not you guys. I want somebody, anybody. I always ask my students, anybody here from New Jersey? All right. You're hired, because New Jersey people go like, hey, finish up. That's what I need. Not, oh man, I hope he knows the time. I've showed it to him twice in this little way. No. New dude. So you're going to let me know when it's 5 minutes left?
What time are we ending?
This is the good question.
11.
11? So you're going to let me know when it's, let's say, 8 minutes of. How's that? Because then we can make sure we ask questions. But I'm from a large family. I'm used to being interrupted. So if we have questions on the way, do it. What was that?
He made a joke. He was telling Siri to give him an alarm in 8 minutes.
Is Siri from New Jersey? I'm sorry?
Yeah, totally.
I think Siri is. I think she's from New Jersey. I think she's from Patterson. I'm just thinking,
she's from Georgia.
but she's cleaned it up a lot, So all right. So where do you see the metaverse or metaverses in development right now? Are we there? Is it 1 to 2 years away? Is it 5, 10 years away? So let's just go right down the line.
It's not like when, it's what. So it's not when it's doing, but it's like what you can do. So it's if you might be there, other people might not be there. So what can you do that enhances your life? Then maybe you're going towards the metaverse. But no, I think that we've got hardware issues, we've got data issues, we've got building issues, but as the younger generation comes up, I think for them, it might already be here, but for maybe us, maybe not.
Yeah, if you break down the metaverse into the primary ways that it's used, you would say kind of social metaverse, more like the online gaming, and industrial metaverse, which is more like digital twins, and then enterprise metaverse, which is more like how we will do our jobs on a daily basis, communicating, collaborating.
Give that one again, because you talked about that over breakfast.
So yeah, so I think there's the three. So I think the social metaverse is largely already here. You can't argue with it. Like hundreds of millions of daily active users in Roblox and Fortnite. So that's done. That's here. And that generation, the younger generation, that's how they expect to socialize, to play, and they will want to work in environments like that. You need to understand that. That's already here, done, by the way. There's no arguing with that. Hundreds of millions of users every day. Then you have the enterprise metaverse, which is more about how you can improve efficiency, productivity in, we call it like factory or industrial settings, through digital twins would be a primary technological enabler.
So you create a digital version of something that's real.
Yeah, and you have data
Product,
flowing between
building,
the physical, a machine,
yeah.
a jet engine, a factory, and that data is flowing to the virtual, and then you visualize that and you can run future scenarios on what happens if this thing breaks, then what happens then, and how do I do whatever. And that's already done, by the way. That's already creating serious value and productivity gains in these industrial settings. Like no arguing with that whatsoever, it's done. And now we have the enterprise version, which is where things are starting to come up a little bit more. They're way behind. And that's more like how you, if you work for a large employer, how will you do your work? How will you collaborate with teammates? How will you co-create with teammates? How will you communicate? And the big question is how long before you start doing mostly the vast majority of your daily work, in one of these metaverse environments. And that's some of the stuff that we're working on quite substantially, taking learnings from the social side, taking learnings from the enterprise side, taking learning from the gaming side, and then trying to see how we can enable this new version of the future of work through these immersive, spatial, more interactive, more gamified types environments.
To the social metaverse that you talked about, I have my 11-year-old granddaughter makes her 13-year-old brother really mad for a number of reasons. But this one in particular is she goes into the game and she doesn't even play the game. She just sits there with her friends. To your point, she's using it as a social environment. She's going in because there's a game that makes it easy for them to all know how to operate. And we were thinking about what is the cultural shift there? To your point earlier, we were talking before the session, if you don't know this and you're going to hire these young people, you're missing that this is how they are. They're used to this. This is not something that's new and cool and you're going to be the cool company that has, no, you need to meet them where they are. So that's the one takeaway there. The other one is, you have students, I have students, and I have as a final paper, they have to pick their topic, et cetera, spend a bunch of time. And 4 or 5 of them were talking like the metaverse is here. Like not, oh, some future thing. It's like, yeah, this is here right now. And I think it's consistent with what you guys are saying is, depending on how you live your life, are you in these kinds of environments, you already see it, it's here. And now everybody else is just catching up. And you're hoping that some people never catch up. I'm just telling you.
Can I just add, we talked about this a lot, it's very important that you understand this. There is a gigantic generational divide between the expectations of Gen Z and Alpha coming behind them and every other generation that has come before. And it can be very difficult for generations that have come before to understand why would your grandkid choose to go in and just talk with friends in a game and not play the game. Like it's just to other people that's just complete nonsense.
To her, it's so normal.
That is the experience that she wants. So we talked about this a lot, and we could spend days talking about this, but this cultural and social drivers of adoption and understanding the needs of that generation, but also then how we think a lot about how do we build bridges between that generation and my generation or generations that have come before me. You can't just flip a switch.
Generation? Thank you.
Yeah, you can't just flip a switch and it all change to these online immersive spatial environments overnight. So how do we look across and build bridges across the generations and the technologies until the level of adoption is really there en masse, where it will be in several years from now.
When I told Domhnaill about this earlier, he said, well, why doesn't she go on Discord? And I can now hear her voice. Like, what is that? That's exactly how she would say it, too. This is my granddaughter, Roxy. Okay, so let's take it back to media. Media is those 3 areas that we talked about. So you can pick any and all that you're interested in. I know entertainment's in your wheelhouse big time. What kinds of things are you seeing the media world? And I'm going to say it's probably a push-pull. Like they're going to use certain things that have been created by the tech space. And then on the other hand, they're going to create something that we never imagined that will become commonplace. Remembering that this whole metaverse word came out of a fiction novel, right? It's where a lot of these concepts come from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of were going to ask, like, what's really real, and you talked about the industrial metaverse, but we're talking about media here, and I want to bring it back to the way that media is being created right now is that if you do a IRL, in real life, movie shoot, you have to go on set, and you have to go on location, and you have to bring everybody there, and you have to
bring your money.
It's a lot of money and a lot of energy. So a lot of people are using these game engines to create parts of the story world, wherever it might be. So instead of going to the Grand Canyon with everybody, you recreate the Grand Canyon in a virtual world, and then you can put IRL, in real life people, in that game world in studios that have LED walls. But what's beautiful about it is that your camera, like how you move the camera, you have to move your camera like this in the real world, or you can get a drone. But in a virtual world, you can put your camera anywhere. You can move your camera anyway. And so I think that's one place that's sort of leading with the high fidelity, with the great virtual worlds, that has a place that you really want to go to.
So taking some of this technology and using it in the creation of different kind of media. In particular, what you had there was was it filmmaking or
filmmaking
TV show
and
making?
just world making and then game making and the merging of, some people talk about it as story enabling as opposed to storytelling. And I loved, if you saw the Duncan's presentation from Disney yesterday, when he was talking about how Walt Disney reimagined the theater experience, and that's how he came up with Disneyland. You could almost say all the same things about how reimagining the theater experience into the metaverse experience.
So do you see any others where you've seen some things that are being done in media creation that might move into gaming world or a metaverse where it's experiential? Have you seen anything there? I know you have. But
Well, yeah. I mean, on weekends, I go to Sandbox VR where I play, VR. So it's a place that you go to,
my turn
and
to
you pay money, and you, like 6 of you have a headset on, and you're playing against some enemies as all 6 people. Everybody's got a backpack and a headset, and you have, different, usually weapons, and you're battling zombies or something all together. But in Atlanta, we all do that on the weekends. We don't go to theater anymore. We go to things like that.
You just make movies and get other people to go to theaters.
Well, so movies are story worlds now that have multiple extensions into, and also I think that getting back to the the physical and the digital, so the avatar, is the human actor or whatever. We're making a digital twin of everything. So we have a prop shop now that scans all of the props so that the props can be in the real world and in the virtual world at the same time, especially the hero props. So everything's got a digital component to it.
I'm hearing action figures.
For sure. That's a given.
Coming out of that.
Yes.
So.
Yeah,
Sean,
so I
action
mean,
figure.
I love the production side of things, and but that's still very expensive, even though it's much cheaper than bringing actors and building sets in the Grand Canyon. One of the things we're seeing quite a lot is, you could just treat or think of the metaverse as an additional digital channel. So you have your typical streaming or video theater, and you have your theme parks or whatever. It can be another channel. Bring your audience, especially this particular generation we're talking about, allow them to engage your content and engage those stories in this more spatial, immersive way. So a lot of the firms or clients that we're working with,
He's not allowed to name them, but we're going to get him to name some.
you would know them, but they're looking to bring some of that content, some of that IP to this other digital channel. It happens to be called the metaverse. Now, in fact, some of them don't even call it the metaverse because the metaverse is a loaded term. Some of them, without naming names, call it next generation storytelling. Or they'll call it virtual experiences. They won't even talk about metaverse, but it's the same. It's all the same thing. So they're very smart on how they create it as an additional digital channel. How can I engage different generations, different segments of their customer base, and how can we add that immersion, that gamification, and those different ways of telling stories by just treating this as an additional digital channel. And then I think in time, the stuff I love about what you're describing is I believe that in time will, the cost of that will go down drastically. We'll start bringing some of that technology directly into our office spaces. So like using mocap technology, motion capture, to track my body movement so that my avatar gets brought into these virtual spaces where it's fully me. In other words, what my body language is, what is the essence of me, how I move my hands. When I got amped up about things, I've got veins in each of my temples that start like bulging and kind of going a bit wild that my friends joke about. So how does my avatar fully represent that? If I choose it to express myself that way in a certain context, or how do I make it more fantastical or magical, or how do I show up as a triangle or something? It doesn't really matter.
I want to add on one thing for that. So you talked about the essence. So right now, let's look at this experience right now. This experience, there's a lot going on, and it's not about sitting in seats with tables and us sitting up here. It's about knowledge transformation. So when we want to recreate this experience in another channel or that has the essence of it, the essence of it is not the space. The essence of it is not to recreate all of the seats and all of the chairs and all of the, because honestly, this is pretty boring.
The room I was in.
This is boring because we have physical constraints. What happens when you just remove all of those physical constraints, and what is the essence of what we're doing? It's hard to figure out, and it gets kind of philosophical, but that's what you should be thinking about. Don't be thinking about literally digitally twinning everything that's around unless you're going to do an industrial version of the whole thing.
Yeah, I want to kind of just massively amplified that. It drives me crazy. A lot of VR experiences today are completely crap. I want to use stronger
Put them
language.
on, quote
but
that. Send
I want
that
to
out,
use even
post it.
stronger language, but I'm trying to pretend to be professional. And it drives me crazy. And exactly to your point, what they do is they right-click on the physical, copy, they right-click into the virtual and paste, and they just say, because it's a physical thing, let's bring it into the virtual. And that is largely complete and utter nonsense. And most of the crap VR that you've experienced is because they've done exactly that. You have to think about, where does this add the most value? What is unique about this? People in physical proximity acting as humans, and then how can we take some parts of that, not all parts of it, into the metaverse, and how can we create new experiences there? Because we shouldn't be bounded by the laws of physics. We should be able to create new experiences, new storytelling mechanisms. And that's something that very much excites me. When you work with the right people that really understand humans plus the technology and the experiences, that's where this starts elevating to a whole new level.
Well, I'm going to take it back to media on this, and then I'm also looking on, what are we? 8 minutes? 7, all right. I didn't hear you at 8. You're fired from New Jersey. So so we got questions. Put your hand up and let me know. One comment on that is the same happens with every media. There used to be when TV came out, they took a camera, put it in front of a play, and recorded that, and that was TV. Because you have to try those kinds of things to then realize, oh, I can do a pan and a cutaway and multiple cameras and all those other things. So let's get a question here near the front, and then all the way in the back. First here. What do you got?
Sure. So for those aspiring entrepreneurs in the metaverse world, specifically in the B2B, when you're talking to some of your clients, what are some of the use cases that you believe will drive the adoption of this?
So in B2B space in particular,
In
what
enterprise,
kinds of skills in the enterprise need for this?
Employee onboarding and engagement, community building and co-creation with, so there's a lot in our financial services and health sciences where they are desperate to build community with their customers and then enable them to co-create with their customers, and the metaverse offers up a really good solution when designed well for that. So they're the two really big ones that we're seeing, and I could go on, there's others, but they're really common at the moment. Being
So
used
all the way in
daily.
the back here. Hi. A little bit louder.
We're talking about this metaverse and the constraints on it. I'm just wondering, are we also looking at a sensory perception aspect with this metaverse? You're talking about a bodysuit for green screens and so on and so forth. Have they started development into, okay, we may not have smell-o-vision, but we would definitely be able to have perception through a metaverse bodysuit. And therefore your avatar will be able to respond in kind to that metaverse environment.
So is there going to be multi-sensory? I'm just going to chime in here because a world expert here in haptics is in the front row working with the Internet of Senses, which is exactly where you are. But go ahead.
Well, no, just, I mean, yeah, totally. To get all of the body senses is a whole lot to go on with. But you know, right now, embedding things like a camera in the if you're using a VR headset, and then it can do the body tracking. So all of these advancements in body tracking with AI allows much more fidelity in body tracking with a lot less suit oriented. I don't think the suits are going to be it'll be necessary at some point in time. It'll be camera based.
Yeah, just to add, yes, people are working on it. I think it is a very long way to go. But one could also just ask why. We have sensory perception of the world and human intelligence in this environment today. Do we actually want to fully replicate that in the metaverse?
Right.
That's a really big question that I have in general. When does it make sense?
Joel, just this up to you is when we look at these things, we tend to look at them as you and I sitting here now, but we don't tend to look at them in the perspective of what the movie Avatar brought out. We have a paraplegic or quadriplegic, and thereby the bodysuit brings to them.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. No,
Okay.
for accessibility.
I'm going to keep moving to the next question so we get people's questions. I got one right, the woman right in front of you, and then this gentleman over here who's being very patient.
So you were talking about like virtual productions, and I think that's cool that it kind of expands the amount of stories that we're able to tell. But I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think it's a negative thing that it can kind of limit the authenticity of the kind of stories and kind of art that can put out?
Well, you know, it just depends on what your authenticity is. I highly recommend you watch We Met in VR. which is a story about people who live a lot in VR and then they've met in those worlds. But the younger generation, their authentic worlds do involve the real, virtual worlds that are incredibly real to them. Think about all the people that you've met that you've actually never met, that you communicate with and stuff. So all of that is incredibly real. So authentic to who?
And my take is, are you a Mandalorian fan? Yeah, Mandalorian is using this technology and has lowered the cost of creating what used to take all this post-production cost of adding all this, like someone said, in the green screens. Green screens are out. This is a LED environment that you feel like you're on that frozen planet or desert planet or whatever. I'm not a Mandalorian guy. Question over here.
So you were talking about, kids are getting together in Roblox and they're just hanging out. So, when you think back playing D&D on a BBS and you're on the telephone with friends.
You're dating yourself here. You just threw out some terms. We're pals forever now.
Or even 15 years ago playing World of Warcraft where you're already at endgame, so your game is just hanging out with the people that you met.
Totally.
How is it different based on the generation to what we were doing there?
You want that one or you want?
Is it just higher fidelity like Half-Life now?
My take is this happens all the time and we are always so surprised. Our parents hated us. I hate my kids. It's like, the hate that we pass on, right? And it's a beautiful thing. So they're supposed to do this, to annoy us. And that's part of why they do it. They know it's annoying. I know my Roxy is annoying Jagger. I just know it. And so she's going to do it even more, which perpetuates, et cetera. That's my take on it.
Well, I just was going to say, look at what kids are doing. Watch what kids are doing and see what they're doing and see how they're hanging out and what is similar to what you've done and what is different to what you've done. Yeah.
If I could add, so what you just described, you were, and I'm making up numbers, 0.00001% of the population, right?
A nerd.
I'm not discounting your experience. I didn't use the N-word. I didn't say you were a nerd, but I'm not discounting that experience. But today, 80% plus of Gen Z are playing online games. It's not apples to apples comparison at all. It's totally different. The level of adoption here is totally different. Yeah.
1 minute? Or a question?
No, question.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And 1 minute. My question is we talked about the sensory piece, and there was a big hint around accessibility. Digital has become audio and visual basically since all of our beginnings. I'm looking and I'm curious, where do you see are more interesting opportunities to engage the accessibility community to make sure that the metaverse is accessible to them as well?
So I taught a class this past semester called Self and Community in the Metaverse. And so these are traditional college-age students, but from
Really widely diverse group,
and
economically,
open XR and the accessibility and inclusivity is super important to that age group. And so, even though I talked about, high-end virtual production where you have to have an LED wall and all of that sort of thing, most of the students, we used all open XR, open platform, web XR, where you don't even have to have, all you have to have is a browser in order to create and consume. So again, the metaverse is not a headset necessarily, although the headsets are great for people who are laying in bed in a hospital or who are immobile of some sort, so that's one kind of accessibility, but I'm kind of talking about just general accessibility of all people in the world. And there's a lot of movement because as the internet evolves into its next iteration, we want to learn from our past mistakes. And so follow OpenXR, mandates or whatever, and I think
there's a lot of initiatives there, yeah. We probably should end on that so that we end on time. That's a little big award winner here. You guys have been great. Thanks for the attention as well as the questions. Appreciate you. The really smart people are going to be standing around. The clown car will be out there as well if you want to talk to me. So anxious to hear you.